Welcome to the first episode of Breaking Stems. I'm Avi.
I'm Scott.
I'm kind of a wine snob. I own a wine shop here in Metro Detroit.
And I'm just a wine amateur trying to learn a little bit more.
We got a fun one for you. Our first episode is talking about Napa Valley. It's got its highs and it's definitely got some of its hate. And some of the hate may be real, but we've done our best to pick some of the gems. We're showcasing the pinnacle of Napa Valley, the culty Harlan Estate property of Promontory, and a gem found in Beckstoffer To Kalon 2021 rendition from Nick Goldschmidt.
So if you're watching this, you probably already know that Napa Valley is really kind of the heart of American wine.
For sure.
They've been making wine in the Napa Valley since the late 1800s, but really it had its big uprise and big resurgence in the 1960s and the 1970s.
Shout out Mondavi.
That's right. People like Robert Mondavi really created the blueprint for what winemaking is today. While they've moved away from some of the traditional methods and the traditional styles that Robert Mondavi really paved the way for, some of the big wineries are starting to move back to some of those traditional winemaking methods.
I think that's an excellent point. I think Napa Valley has really created this crux, which we'll talk about later in our video, but you know, French wine and wines across the world are stealing market share from a source that has always been number one. And oftentimes it is the number one market for wines, especially in the US, of course. But I think that Napa is starting to dial it back, where these wines are not so over the top that some of them can be. And they're really trying to focus on the expression of place and letting the wine show. And I think we're showcasing two wines at very different price points. I'm talking like on different stratospheres, but I think they deliver at each one.
I absolutely agree. You know, a lot of people say you can't find value in Napa anymore.
Yeah.
I think if you look hard enough, you really can. Maybe some of the value has gone away from 20, 30 years ago.
Yeah.
I think this is going to be a perfect example of something that's really going to shine really well and really going to show us something special.
100%. I mean, so today we're showing a $1,000 bottle of Promontory and a $60 bottle of Rendition. They both come from the same region in Napa, Oakville. But I think we're gonna start with the Rendition first, just to get an idea of some value, and then we'll go to the heavy hitter.
Yeah, I'm really excited for this today. I've been excited all week for this, but particularly today, I've been amped up all day to taste this.
Let's do it.
I've had this wine before. I'm really excited to try it again.
Yeah.
Can you tell me a little bit about it, Avi?
Yeah, so this is Nick Goldschmidt's wine. He's an outstanding winemaker. He's New Zealand born. He's made wine across California, Argentina, New Zealand. He really focuses on expression and terroir and the purity of wine, and I think that really shows through in this one. But it's a really cool story. So in partnership with the Mondavi family, he moonlights at UC Davis in their enology program, and in exchange he gets access to Beckstoffer To Kalon fruit, which is arguably the greatest vineyard site in Oakville and probably one of the top vineyard sites in all of Napa. And the only stipulation is that he can't, of course, put it on the label. Now, if he did, this wine is probably 3-4 times the price that it is. But that doesn't take away from the absolute quality that's shown in the bottle.
All right.
So this is the 2021 rendition. So let's give it a shot. All right. Excited. Cheers.
Cheers.
Wow.
So what are you getting on the nose?
It's very plush, but I'm not getting that over the top like baking spice and nutmeg and Christmas cabinet kind of notes that I would normally get with a lot of Cabernet out of Napa and what I think a lot of people associate with Napa. I'm getting a little purity of fruit and then red fruit, and there's a certain verve to it.
Yeah, I get a lot of that fruit too.
Yeah. Okay.
Oh wow. I get the fruit when I taste it as well.
That's nice. It's got like that perfect balance. There's like a little bit of that cedar wood. There's just like a dollop of creaminess in it too that kind of brings it all together. I mean, there's obviously some oak integration into this as well. but I don't think it stands out like a sore thumb. I think everything kind of comes together really well.
Oftentimes when I talk to wine experts, I'm always amazed by how many different tasting notes that they can find.
Oh, yeah.
I feel like I figured that out a little bit, but I have not figured it out like a true expert. Like, how do you process all these different things that you're tasting?
Some of it is a little much, I would say, when it comes to peeling apart so many different notes. While I think that some of the best wines to me it's almost like a symphony where you can't just pick out particular notes.
Yes.
It's just kind of like in harmony. But this one in particular, you do get a little bit of that chocolate, you get like cacao bean, you get red fruits. Do you see a little bit of that cedar and that underbrush?
I can definitely sense that.
Yeah.
I noticed that this isn't as tannic as a typical Napa Cab as well.
It's not as drying on the palate.
No.
So it's accessible right now. 2021, you think that that's really young and it probably needs time. Yes, but if you did want to open this, I would have it open for maybe half an hour to an hour and then enjoy it. Or if you want to put it in your cellar for 5 to 10 years, you can do that too.
And how long did we have this open today before we tasted this?
This one, about 30 minutes. Yeah.
Perfect.
Yeah, that's a bottle you could put on a dinner table.
Oh yeah.
Fairly easily, I would say.
Yeah, I'd say so.
Yeah. But now we go to the big guns. We go to a 2016 Promontory.
I've been excited about this all day.
Me too.
I really have.
I haven't tried this yet.
This one is going to be really special, I think.
This is going to be something. So I bought this off the mailing list, I want to say, whenever the 2016 vintage came out. So that may have been 2019 or so. So off the list, just for transparency, it's $700. But on the retail market, if you're going to a shop, it's anywhere between $950 and over $1,000. Mm-hmm. Now, you get the whole question of worth. Like, is the wine worth it? And I think that's super subjective. I think the wine is beautiful. It has just an absolute elegant stature to it that I think in a blind tasting could go toe-to-toe with some of the best that Bordeaux has, but I think anything over $300 or so, the question of value is kind of out the window.
When I think about some of the cult wines in Napa, this definitely comes to mind.
Yeah.
But I also think about, people in the wine industry, they sometimes say big fruit bombs.
Yeah.
Do you think that this is going to be like that?
I don't think this is a big fruit bomb. I think, so the difference with Promontory and where it's at in Oakville is all about its terroir. Like, it's literally in this mountainside that overlooks all of Oakville. It's beautiful. Like, if you get a chance to visit, as soon as you enter, everything's designed by Howard Backen. He's done like all the high-end Napa Valley wineries where he frames the vineyards and the scenes from a particular winery as art in the windows. Like, he knows the exact angles to put a certain window and it's like art. And you just see the whole valley floor. And because of its elevation, it has a different soil type. So it's like volcanic ash, and it has this depth and minerality to it that I think a lot of the Oakville wines don't have. So,
yeah, one thing I've started to notice as I've gone along my wine journey is the wines that are in vineyards up in the mountains.
Yeah.
That's strange. They do taste a lot different than the wines that are in the valley floor.
Yeah.
Seemingly maybe only 500 yards away.
100%. 100%. I mean, even that elevation, it adds to it's a microclimate. You'll probably find a little bit more acidity in the grapes. You might find a little bit more freshness in the fruit. It won't be as so much blue fruited, but maybe it's a little bit more bright. And I think that these are wines that have gone under a lot of strain. So it's just the quality fruit, small production that comes out of these vineyard sites that, I mean, these wines could age probably forever.
So, Promontory, I know a little bit about this wine. I know it's owned by the Harlan family. They're a very prominent family in the Napa area.
Oh, yeah.
But do you know any more about them?
Yeah, so William Harlan, he's the patriarch of the entire estate. He's had Harlan, Bond, Napa Valley Reserve, and Promontory, but now he's handed over the reins to his son, Will, who will oversee all of the estates.
Very cool.
Yeah.
Well, shall we get into it?
I think so.
All right.
This one will be special. So this is 2016 Promontory. I know points don't matter much when it comes to things, but to have multiple, I think it's 3 or 4 100-point scores, is something outstanding. It's been oftentimes compared to Chateau Latour and Chateau Mouton Rothschild, so we'll see if the hype lives up to it.
Is the 100 points just for this vintage?
Just for this vintage, yeah.
All right, very nice. It looks much darker than the other wine you were
It does.
drinking. I'm sure will be very different.
I think so.
Yeah.
Whoa.
Oh, I can already tell it's very different just on the nose. There's a lot more going on with this. The other one, I was getting a lot of fruit.
Wow. You know, so I've tasted with other wine collectors that, you know, they collect Burgundy and Bordeaux and a little bit of Napa, and oftentimes when I bring up Promontory, they're so quick to say, oh no, oh, you know, there's something else, And I just don't know if they've really had the opportunity to sit down with a bottle, because right off the nose, if you put this and a bottle of Haut-Brion or Mouton Rothschild, I think it's pretty dang close. I mean, you get that cedar, you get that cigar box, a little leather.
I definitely get the leather on it for sure. Yeah, this for me, I've had a couple of the very big cult wines. I've never had this one.
I'm glad to share it with you. Cheers.
Yes. Yeah. Thank you for sharing, Avi.
Yeah.
Shall we taste it?
Let's do it.
All right. Wow. Wow, that's incredible.
Wow.
It's quite different than the other one.
It's a symphony.
Yeah.
One thing, do you notice that fruit is not in the front seat?
No, it isn't.
It's all this minerality and a little bit of like earthiness, and you get those tertiary notes of, again, like that leather and cigar. I mean, then right at the finish, you just get that bright fruit.
I noticed that. The finish it's a really long finish too.
Yeah.
Like the taste is in your mouth for a long time.
Oh yeah.
It's really excellent.
Now, is it worth $1,000? Probably not. But when it comes to wines like this and the production it is, worth and values oftentimes out the window, and it's sometimes just a moment to, you know, either share or, you know, splurge on. So not something that I would recommend go and collect and buy and bring at the dinner table. So
I agree with that. As a wine person myself, I've started to realize though, like for some of these more special wines, there's no better time than now to open them.
Right.
I mean, sure, certain wines need to be aged longer and whatnot, but I've even found myself where, you know, I have a small collection at home and I notice things sit.
Yeah.
And I'm waiting for the right time. I can remember early on in my like wine journey, I bought my wife a bottle of Dom. It's still sitting in our basement for some reason. Oh man,
you got to open that.
And so that was years and years ago, and that was a vintage champagne. Yeah. So it should be open right now. Honestly, we've been waiting for the right time. Yeah. So I think there's never the right time to open something like this, and I'm just happy that you shared it with me.
Oh, of course, and I'm glad to share it with you. I think that, you know, you bring up a good point that our generation is reaching that crux of approachability and drinking now. And then what do you put in the cellar and save? Because I mean, the millennial generation and even the generations after us, it's instant gratification. And so I think Napa finds itself in a very interesting position where, you know, can they offer wines, one, of value, wines that can be had now, and then also wines that can be stored, you know, for a while. Yeah. So I think you really have to like look for those particular gems, Rendition certainly being one, and there's countless others. Where you don't always have to go for the Promontory price tag. So,
no. Yeah. I think there's plenty of options that are much lower in price. And if you do have the patience to wait.
Or the wallet.
Or the wallet to wait. You know, I myself, I have a number of wines at home that, you know, they're far, far less money, maybe more closer to the Rendition price point. Yeah. But I'm waiting to open those. Yeah. Because I know that, especially with Napa, there are better things to come, you know, with it being willing to actually wait to open those things.
100%. And I'm kind of a nerd, and so I go on this forum called Wine Berserkers. I think you're familiar with it?
I'm very familiar.
Yeah. So I've been reading, you know, there's a lot of movement on all of these legacy wait lists, you know, so the Scarecrows, the Promontories, the Harlans, the 100 Acres, where people are just, one, they're tired of waiting to have the opportunity to buy a $600 or $700 bottle of wine, and then at the same time, they do get off the list, and they may not actually want to spend $2,400 on a 3-pack or a 6-pack for, you know. So
well, I can tell you that as a millennial, a big barrier that I see with a lot of my own friends is just not being able to afford it. Yeah. And so, you know, when you talk about a 3-pack for $2,400, like I do dedicate a lot of money towards wine, but I could never justify that myself.
Yeah, it's I think there is a place for everything. There's a buyer for everything. I mean, on an economic standpoint, as long as there's demand for something, and there will always be someone who's willing to pay the highest ticket price. But that being said, I think there comes a moment where Napa is at a tipping point where, you know, they may start having to cater to that majority sentiment where they don't want to spend $2,400 on a 3-pack. Because I don't think that there's been a moment in history where there's been more great wine produced. Like right now, there is such great wine produced across the globe. So if you get a chance to go to Promontory, I highly recommend it. Everything is done so meticulously. Everything, even the decor, where certain rooms are placed, the barrels and how they're placed, everything has a reason. I think that shows through in the bottle, so.
Well, very nice.
Yeah.
Cheers.
Cheers, man. Excellent episode. First one of Breaking Stems.
Check us out next time when we're going to be exploring some of the big wines of Bordeaux.